Hello and welcome to Somewhere in Waldo County. Well, I'm with Duke Tomlin at the Belfast Airport Open House and Fly-In, and you have a perfect day for this, don't you?
Couldn't ask for better weather. This is absolutely gorgeous.
Well, you know, yesterday, the day before the event, I noticed there were quite a few new-looking things up in the sky. I guess some people came in early for this, right?
That's correct. We actually had a contingent come in, most of these planes behind us from Pennsylvania. They came in on Thursday, and they've been, touristing around town, sampling a lot of lobster.
All right, so it's good for the local economy, huh?
Absolutely.
And so this is the second year of the event?
That's correct.
So what is it, why do you go through all the effort of doing this?
Well, pilots like to fly to different places, and the coast of Maine is a very unique place. It's absolutely beautiful scenery to fly around the islands. The lobster is a big attraction, and they like to go someplace different and become tourists. And the other aspect of that is we wanted to have the public come out and see what goes on at the airport, what the airport has to offer. The airport is another gateway to the city, just like the harbor is. And it's really a jewel of a piece of infrastructure in the city. And we really need to make those investments in the infrastructure, parallel taxiways and fuel especially. The fuel is important because it would be like trying to invite tourists to Belfast and not have a gas station in town.
So when you say pilots coming in, it's a specific kind of pilot, right? That you're having come in here. I mean, I have the impression that a lot of their planes were made by themselves.
That's right. All these planes back here were home-built, what they call home-built aircraft, most of them from kits. And that's a whole contingent of what we call general aviation, small. Most of them are single engine, but a few twin engine planes. And there's a big kit building community that really love this kind of venue.
Are there particular trends in the home aircraft making world?
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of how it started, with very simple home-built airplanes, actually called ultralights now. And then they just got more and more sophisticated. Most of these airplanes behind us are two-people airplanes, but they can fly over 200 miles an hour. And you pretty much can go anywhere in the country with that. And you can build a homemade airplane all the way up to 8-passenger turbine engine aircraft that cost $1 million.
Well, I must say it's kind of intriguing to think about becoming a pilot. Can one get lessons right here to get a pilot's license?
That's right. We have a display table over here with Sandy Reynolds, who works with Airlink out of Waterville, and he's giving lessons here at the Belfast Airport. And that's a great way to get going. You could come out and take an introductory flight and see what it's all about and whether you like it or not, and he can walk you through what's involved.
So you've been involved with the airport for a long time. In what capacity? You've been a pilot, but tell me what your connection is with the airport.
Well, I'm currently the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association chapter president here, which puts on this event. Mm-hmm. I'm also a member of the Airport Advisory Committee in Belfast, and I'm also a member of the Maine Aeronautical Advisory Board that works with the Maine Department of Transportation to advise the state transportation on general aviation issues.
Okay, so this sounds like I could ask you some stupid questions that probably the average Belfaster might not think is so stupid, but like how many airplanes are up here regularly that like have hangars and stay here?
There's about 20 or so, give or take, based aircraft here right now.
Now, of those 20, are they all owned by like private people? Or for instance, I know that I see at least once a day or twice a day, I guess, the Athena Health has sort of like a big plane.
That's right. That's right. Most of them are privately owned, but Athena has an aircraft called the Pilatus that's a 8-passenger turbine-powered plane, and they shuttle people from here down to the Boston area several times a week. And so that's a corporate plane that comes in. Also some customers of Front Street Shipyard and French and Webb will fly in to conduct business or check on their boat, whatever.
When pilots come to the Belfast airport, do they dread trying to land here, or do they say, well, it's an okay airport? Should we feel proud of our airport or embarrassed by our airport?
Overall, we should feel proud. It's a great airport. Our big issue now is getting fuel here, because that will really help embellish the airport. I mean, if you're coming to Belfast, you're going to fly to the Belfast airport. But if you're in the area, you really need to have some fuel here. And transient people who may only stop to buy, they may be going further up country, they will stop here and buy fuel, and then they might jump into town and grab something to eat and see Belfast and say, hey, this is a pretty neat place. Let's come back here.
So I was up at the Augusta airport getting I think there was a restaurant there or something, and I saw like it looked like a fuel oil truck, but it had aviation fuel. Could it be as simple as having like a fuel truck that could be here and couldn't an entrepreneur do it, or does it have to like I or can just does it have to be like a city-owned thing, or how does it work?
It's predominantly a city-owned thing. I mean, anybody who sells gasoline, whether it be for cars or airplanes, knows there's not a lot of profit in it. You do it to bring people to your business, like a lot of the convenience stores.
So we need a convenience store associated with our.
That would be good. That would be good. But the most cost-effective way to do that is have a tank and a credit card pump, just like you fill up your car with. And pilots can come 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, refuel their airplane on their own, pay for the gas with their credit card, and then stay or leave. And you don't need a man to drive the truck and a man to pump the fuel and things like that.
Could that be like a co-op? Could the 20 pilots who live here, who come here every year, pay a fee to be part owners of such a thing, or?
That's a possibility, but we ran into an issue a couple of years ago with the former FBO when there was a fuel system here.
What do you mean by FBO?
Sorry about that. That stands for fixed base operator. They're people who do business at the airport, whether it be a flight school or a mechanic or a fuel sales.
Oh, so this is this value added. Instead of a convenience store, they might also, for instance, have a mechanic.
Right, or have lessons, right. Anyway, the people before, they didn't do well, and they basically sold their fuel farm. And so now we have nothing. And our attitude is the city should own that infrastructure. The city doesn't necessarily have to sell the fuel or maintain it, but they should own that infrastructure so it can't leave.
Right. I'm going to take my ball and go home.
Exactly. Exactly what happened.
So today, what are the kinds of things that, now I know when you're watching this that it's like in the past, but I imagine you want to have this every year.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things if I come up here? I notice, for instance, right now there's a breakfast going on next to us. Tell me about some of the activities that you have as part of your open house.
Okay, well, we have a breakfast from 7:30 to 10. That's a fundraiser for our chapter to help defray the costs of this. There's a lot of volunteer work. This does not run in the black. So that's our breakfast, and then from the whole fly-in runs from 7:30 till 3. And there'll be food trucks here, should be arriving fairly shortly, to satisfy people for the rest of the day. We have a hangar over here with display booths of different aviation organizations, a lot of community service organizations like Angel Flight Northeast, which voluntary pilots will fly cancer patients from, say, here to Boston for cancer treatment. It doesn't cost the patient anything. There's a display on home-built aircraft. How do you build your own airplane?
Very carefully.
Very carefully, right. Follow the instructions. We offer what we call Young Eagle rides for kids from ages 8 to 17. We give them a free airplane ride. And then there'll be helicopter rides. They charge a fee. I think it was about $35 a person for a few-minute ride around the area. So they're going to be here offering helicopter rides. And then some display aircraft. Athena Health's corporate aircraft, the Pilatus, will be here. Life Flight should have their King Air aircraft here. The Maine Warden Service is going to be here with their UE helicopter. So a lot of events going on.
So it's cool stuff to see.
Yeah, it's great stuff to see. The kids love it. The kids absolutely love it out here.
So I'm going to ask a delicate question, because people who know our station know that one of our favorite toys is our Captain Albert Stevens quadcopter. And we've been using it to get beautiful aerial footage of everything from the rail trail to the lakes and things like that. And as a videographer, having well, we call it a quadcopter because a drone makes it sound like we'll take you out with an AK-47. But it's basically a little flying device about this big, and it's been getting a lot of in the news lately because aviators worry that they're going to fly into it like they might fly into a goose or a seagull.
Right. I mean, it is a concern with the aviation population because these quadcopters and drones are so ubiquitous. There are actually more of those in the country than there are airplanes right now. And so the concern is an uneducated operator operating it anywhere he wants to. And there have been actually several close calls with aircraft and these airliners and that. So it's they're working out the transition with this type of aviation and how they're going to fit in with aviation.
Well, I can tell you that ours, which is called Phantom DJI, it has software in it that won't let you fly over 500 feet.
Right.
So, and airplanes aren't supposed to unless they're in the airport area. But the other cool thing is it won't even let you fly into the airport area. It has like built-in like coordinates because these are all GPS controlled. So it's an amazing amount of safety features that have already been built into these devices. But I can see, you deal with two major issues with these. First is not wanting to, be a hazard to aviation, and second is using it so you're not a peeping Tom getting shots of people sunbathing in the nude in their backyard.
Privacy is the other aspect of that. That's
so
correct.
we feel as the quadcopter operators a certain responsibility too. But it's interesting to see that I have a friend who loves flying these, but he's gotten interested in aviation, as possibly flying as a result. So I kind of think there may be a spin-off benefit to people flying, especially the people who are using these, I would say, non-traditional aircraft that you have.
Right, and because it's new disruptive technology, we have to work out where everybody's proper place is and how we can all, utilize the same airspace together safely.
Yes, yes. So it's a perfect day for this. Thank you for taking your time. You're sort of in charge of this whole event, so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I'm going to see if I can find someone who has flown in from somewhere far from Belfast and learn about their airplane.
Yeah, good. I know there's a guy from Maryland, and there's supposed to be a guy from Kentucky here, but I don't know where he is. But you can look for him.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ned.
Okay, so I've been speaking with Duke Tomlin, onward and outward to look at some of the planes. Well, it seemed as if we were almost on cue. A float plane pulled into our shot as I was winding up our interview, and out steps Pat McGowan, who is the president of PK Floats. But I said that name is awfully familiar. Haven't you had other jobs that I might be familiar with? I think I may have even interviewed you when you were the head of the Small Business Administration in Maine, and then you were a commissioner for the Conservation Commissioner.
Right.
So this is like the many lives of Pat McGowan. Pat, how did you get into this particular line of work?
Well, as my mother would say, you can't hold a job. So, I've been a pilot since I was 16, and I used to come. We had a skydiving team for years and came to the Broiler Festival in Belfast.
Really?
Oh yeah, we had a great time back in the 70s and 80s, and telling you how old I am now. But PK Floats is a company up in Lincoln, Maine that makes airplane floats, and we make amphibious airplane floats, which we call them the finest floats in the world, and they're made right here in Lincoln, Maine. And
this is so good to hear, because Lincoln, Maine is, all I can think about is, unemployment up there with the mills closing down. And also when I think of things being made, it's rare that they're not made in China.
Well, we make these floats in Lincoln, Maine. They are handmade, every set. They're riveted with aluminum. We put them on airplanes like this Aviate Husky that comes from Afton, Wyoming. It's a bush plane, and this plane lands on both water and land. And it's an example of Maine craftsmanship, like they had for years in the Belfast boat builders and the boat builders along the coast.
We still have them in Belfast.
I know you do, and you guys are doing a wonderful job with those handmade boats that you're making in the marina. But this is a day that can show the value of an airport to a community. And if you have an airport, communities can rebound and they can thrive. And that's why we're glad to be here. PK helping Duke and his crew celebrate this wonderful day. And you could look at the activity around here.
Sure.
I was listening to the radio coming in. There were at least 15 airplanes airplanes coming in to land at Belfast, Maine. So,
Yeah.
so congratulations to the town of Belfast.
Well, so getting back to float planes, the one thing I think is really great about them is that it leaves your options open when the airport's socked in fog or something else is going in, right? Doesn't it make it now? With a float plane, I remember I used to be a whitewater guide up and drive through Bingham, and they used to have this bush pilots convention.
Yeah, in Greenville. They had it last weekend.
Okay. Oh,
They had it last weekend.
So it's still going on. A lot of people from Alaska were the ringers that would come in, as I recall.
Well, we've got some pretty good Maine guys now that win most of the competitions.
Really?
But the Greenville seaplane fly-in was the weekend after Labor Day. Had record crowds, record numbers of people. Aviation in Maine is alive and well, and Belfast is an example today of how great it's doing. And this is a great day.
Yeah. So you've been flying since you were 16, you say?
Yeah, I started flying when I was 16 years old, back in high school up in Pittsfield, Maine.
Wow. So what do you like to do as a pilot? Do you like generally go from point to point with the idea that you've got to deliver that truth serum to the FBI, or or are you just flying for the sake of it's a beautiful day and I'll just kind of like go around, see what I can sightsee?
How'd the FBI get involved in this?
I don't know. I was just trying to think of some
No,
reason you had a cause to go somewhere.
Well, now I fly for business a lot, and I flew a plane. We're putting up floats on an Airvan aircraft made in Australia. We'll make the floats in Lincoln, Maine, and we're doing a lot of those partnerships with airplane manufacturers. But I fly a lot for business, airport to airport. I do some recreational flying in the rivers. I mean, the rivers and lakes in northern Maine. And
can't you make it somehow a business trip so you can deduct the mileage?
Sure you can. Don't tell the IRS.
Okay. All right. So I've been talking with Patrick McGowan. It's great to see you wearing a different shirt, a different role, but being very active in the state of Maine.
It's very good to see you, and we're making good things up in Lincoln, Maine.
All right. So I saw a familiar face in the hangar. Why, it was none other than Sandy Reynolds, who we've been crying about here in Belfast for a few years because he was our last really great fixed base operator.
Thank you.
Won't you come back?
I'm here part-time now.
Okay, well that's
but
great.
not as an FBO, just as a flight instructor.
A flight instructor, and that's why you're here in this capacity right now.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask is, what happened to the little red airplane I used to see flying above Belfast for years?
Okay, I sold Maine Scenic Airways about 2 years ago, and the new owners, after 6 months, they packed up and moved south.
And took the little red plane with them?
They took both. It was a complete entity sale, so they owned all the airplanes at that point, and they took the airplanes with them to the new airport.
And apparently a fuel tank too.
Fuel tank went a few months later, yeah, about 6 months later, I think. Yeah.
Which is a sore point in Belfast ever since.
They need fuel in Belfast. They do, yeah.
So yeah, I was wondering how important it was to have fuel.
It is important. It's difficult. You have to sort of range your flights to make sure you stop at an airport that has fuel. If you're doing flight instruction, or charters or something, it's a hard thing to do. You got to really think way ahead. Mm-hmm. It can be done, but it's not. Life would be easier if you didn't have to do it.
So if I want to learn to be able to solo someday, how long does it take? Maybe having lessons every Saturday or something like that.
Okay, what I used to tell people is if you can schedule once a week, and that's what you mentioned, it's going to take you somewhere between 6 months and a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, you're still getting some. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of ground work, but you also go up in the plane sometimes.
Oh, you fly in the plane a lot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you figure if you went once a week in a year, you'd get 52 flights. Mm-hmm. Which is you'd have your license, but it might take you a little longer than that, or you might have bad weather. You will have some bad weather. So there's a lot of things that have to be done. You have to learn the academic side, and then in the end take a test with the FAA, a written test.
Yeah.
That has to be done concurrent with your flight training, and then you take the flight training, and I would call it a three-part process. One is pre-solo, learning how to fly the airplane and be safe enough in it you can go by yourself.
Sort of like with a car analogy, you have to drive with your dad for a while.
A long time.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first, it's made three parts. The first third is getting to solo, and then you make three supervised solo flights. That's where the instructor stands outside on the runway, and basically I stand outside and I grade their landings. And they do that on three different occasions. And once that is completed, then the second phase would be learning to fly cross country, to go from one airport to another airport.
Yeah.
Legally, you have to go 50 miles away for it to count for your check ride. So you have to have 3 hours of cross country minimum with the instructor. Usually I do about 6.
So from Belfast, what's the closest airport you would go to that you would be qualified?
The closest airport from Belfast that would qualify as a
50 mile, yeah.
50 nautical mile at least would be Brunswick.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a nice big airport. That has long runways, right?
And there's a lot of others I go to. I mean, I go to Lewiston quite a lot. Sometimes we go to Sugarloaf, a great little airport, but you got to be careful on the weather. Because up in the mountains. You go to Machias.
Yeah.
You go to Lincoln. You can go to Greenville. So there's a lot of airports to go to.
So once I have my license, I probably can't afford a plane by myself. Can I go in with a couple friends and like have a aviation club where like 4 of us own one plane?
Yeah, yeah, you can.
What's the best way? What do most people do?
All of the above. But the cheapest way to fly, the cheapest way, I'm going to explain it. If you own an airplane, you can only share with your passengers the direct operating expenses. That means you can share fuel, oil, and parking fees. That's it. If you can't share maintenance, you can't share insurance, you can't share, parts and all that stuff.
It starts adding up, is what you're saying.
Oh, it adds up. Hangering, you can't share. However, if you rent an airplane, and it says right in the regulations that you can share rental costs on a pro rata basis.
Okay.
So if you rent an airplane and then share the rental cost with your passengers, that is the least expensive way to get flight hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because all the above, which you can't, if you own the airplane, which you can't share, those are all included in the rental cost.
So you'd get a plane that could hold at least 4 people, so you could have 3 people.
I did it, 45 years ago as a private pilot.
Yeah.
I was in the Army, and I'd get a bunch of buddies, and we'd all kick in $5 a piece back then, and we'd go fly for an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's multiply it by 10, and you can do it.
Right. Yeah. But the least expensive way to get flight hours is to share the rental costs with your passengers.
All right.
Cheaper than
We'll have to leave a tip because I got to talk to at least one
good.
other pilot.
Yeah.
Sandy Reynolds, thanks for talking to me, and it's nice
Good
to see
talk
you.
to you. Okay.
All right, I found the pilot who flew all the way up from Pennsylvania. It's Al Rubin. And Al, how long did it take you to fly up here, and did you have to stop for gas along the way?
Well, it took 2.5 hours to fly, and I did not have to stop for gas. This plane holds 42 gallons of gas, and I landed with 22 gallons remaining. It's a very efficient airplane.
Wow, so tell me about your plane. You built it, huh?
Yes.
I overheard you say to somebody it took you like 5.5 years.
That's correct. This is a home-built aircraft. It's a Vans RV-8. It's all aluminum construction with flush rivets.
So hold on just a second, because a lot of us are real beginners here. When you said it's home built and you said the model, do you like buy plans, or do you get a kit that has all the things pre-made and you just plop them in? How does it work?
That's a great question. It is a kit build, and Vans is one of the largest kit builders in the world.
Okay.
They have sold, and they have 9,400 aircraft flying. So people bought kits and have 9,400 actually flying already. It's one of the biggest in the world. The metal is pre-punched for you, so you don't need to jig anything, and it goes together with temporary fasteners as you're riveting. It's a fairly easy kit to build. It's not as hard as a plans built. Plans built would be much more difficult.
So was this your first plane you ever built?
Yes, it is.
And it looks like you're getting good use out of it. What made you think of coming to Belfast?
Well, one of my close friends moved up here from Pennsylvania and is based at this airport now, so we've come up. I love the area. It's great. Of course, the lobster is great. The scenery is great. We love going to Acadia, and we love the lakes. And when just kayaking on the lakes and swimming in the lakes up here. It's just gorgeous up here.
That's great. So a few more things about, like, for the novice plane person. So it's a single passenger. How fast? It's not?
No, it's a two passenger.
Two passenger. And how fast does it go?
This will cruise at 200 miles an hour. So
That seems pretty, that's faster than NASCAR.
well, yeah, just a little bit. And they're very efficient aircraft. This will cruise at 200 miles an hour. And if I slow down a little bit, and I'm at about 175 miles an hour, this will do it on 7.5 gallons an hour. And if you convert to statute miles, that's about 24.9 miles per gallon.
Wow, that seems really good. I always thought that planes were used a lot more than cars.
Yeah,
but
these can be very efficient if you know how to lean the engine properly and run the engine in a condition where it's using very small amounts of fuel.
When you're up that high, does it get cold in your cockpit?
It can. On a day like today, probably as you get around 8,000 feet, it's going to be in the high 40s.
Mm-hmm. And what flight height do you typically fly at?
Typically, you would fly somewhere on a long cross country like this. It's all dependent on the winds.
Okay.
You want to try to find the favorable winds, but a lot of times I like to fly a cross country between 8,000 and 11,000 feet.
And as far as like the instrumentation, you probably have less than a jet airplane, a commercial plane. What are the fundamental things that you use these days to fly as far as instruments?
Well, believe it or not, being experimental, we are the seed bed for all the new technology. So I have newer technology in this airplane than a lot of the airlines.
Like what kind of cool technology do you like that you've got in there?
Well, I have two built-in GPSs, and I use a third GPS and an iPad for navigation.
So I'm a boater guy. It's like having a chart plotter in your plane?
I have a moving map that shows all the airports and has all the information about the airports stored in that system. So I can look up the information for Belfast, tell how long the runway is, what the directions are. I even get the weather in the air. Wow. I get surrounding traffic in the air, so I can see other airplanes around me.
Oh man, when you compare that to Lindbergh or something, I mean, life is good with GPS.
GPS is great, and now with weather and traffic in the cockpit, it's much safer. I know what the weather is while I'm flying. I can avoid hazardous weather, and I know about the airport that I'm going into a lot. I have a lot more information at my fingertips.
That's great. I've been speaking with Al Rubin, who's an aviator from Pennsylvania. So I never expected that coming up and seeing a bunch of planes would be so much fun, but this has been a great success, the open house at the airport. And until next time, this is Ned Leitner for Somewhere in Waldo County. Taking off.